Good evening. Welcome to the Spiritual But Not Religious Show. I'm your host, George Lewis. I've got a fantastic guest for us tonight. I'm sure that you'll have a great time. I've got a really cool guest lined up for next week. Uh, I have filmmaker Frank Hugenard. Uh, Frank did a documentary called Beyond Belief, and what he does is shows that Jesus actually lived and died in India, and that he taught meditation and past life reincarnation. So, pretty interesting guy. Does a lot of really pretty wild kind of things. Grows tomato plants higher than his house. So, be sure and tune in next week. You'll have a great time. I want to tell you a bit about the Spiritual Broadcasting Network, about the Spiritual But Not Religious Show, what we're doing, why we're doing it. You know, there really is a spiritual revolution in progress. Change is at hand for us, I believe. Uh, this transformation has been in progress for a long time, really. But I believe we'll hit a turning point, a tipping point where we'll move from where the world basically operates from its dark side. That's the overriding kind of factor, to a place where the overriding factor will be from our light side. More people will be operating from their light side than their dark. Uh, I don't, 2012 and all that. I don't see that as any end of the world, unless you're talking about uh, the mental world and a big transformation there, because I think that's more what's going to happen than anything. And the Spiritual But Not Religious show is here to bring a voice to I'll tell you what, the United States population right now, 20% report to the government that they're spiritual, not religious, as opposed to any of the other denominations. And religions, they're fast coming out of religions. They're just not finding the kind of connection they're after with a higher power or the satisfaction with the churches in many cases. So, because we're such a diverse lot, we have so many different beliefs. We really don't have a central place where our voice can be heard. So, uh, we're working at bringing the voice of the spiritual but not religious community to you. The I want to talk a little bit tonight about spirituality and with what's going on in the states in our country at this point. If you've been watching the news at all, I'm sure you're familiar with the Occupy Wall Street movement and what's going on in our country. Basically, when you really look at it, what's happened is we have legalized corruption, really, uh, in so many areas, and we need some pretty dramatic kinds of changes. And so we've got demonstrators started out in Wall Street, and now it's moved into the other major cities. It was here in Sarasota for a while. You know, it's pretty easy when we live our spiritual life to think that we should be cloistered and not be involved in our community. And the the reality is we don't need to run off to an ashram. We live our spiritual life right here where we live and where we work. And spirituality really is a democratic kind of a living, and it's our responsibility to speak out and to take part in our social circumstances wherever we find ourselves. And so I want to do my part by talking about the Occupy Wall Street movement. There are many places on the web that you can find out information. They have a website for voting on what the movement is looking to do. You know, one of the worst things we can do when we're in problems is sit around and think about what I don't want. I don't want this or I don't want that, because we energize the I don't want. And if we really are going to change things, we need to focus on what we do want. So, uh, one of the things that we can do is to help to suggest to the those that are involved in that movement how to do it spiritually, so it has some real valid chance of actually making some changes that are valid and worthwhile. Our middle class has been decimated in the last few years. Actually, you can document, the path way back from the 50s up until now, and it's how it's been slowly eroded. So please think about that. At least tell your friends, talk about it if you agree with what's going on down there, and let's see if we can add our voice and some spiritual solutions to that end. My guest tonight is Curt Remington. Curt has written a really nice book about meditation. It's called Simple Meditation. Have we lost him? Well, I'll tell you what. We've lost Curt on the video. We may end up with just audio. Hopefully, we'll get him back on the audio or on the video. At any rate, Curt, that's the problem with live broadcasting, and when you're using some of the technology, we use Skype to connect to our guests. And Curt's out on the West Coast, I think Oregon or Washington, somewhere out there. We'll find out when he comes back on the line. But his book is Simple Meditation, a Spiritual Connection Transforming Your Life. Do we have Curt on the line?
Yes, Curt.
Hey, Curt, you there? Are you able to hear me, Curt? Hey, Curt, are you able to hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. You know what? Unfortunately, we've lost video with you, so I don't know if we've got some kind of a problem with the internet connection. Tom's trying to get that all back up, so we'll let him do that. But in the meantime, we can talk.
Okay.
But by the way, before we get too far in, my granddaughter is visiting from Michigan, and I'm really pleased to have her here. She's going to be a guest with us tonight.
Great.
Tom's not able. Oh, it looks like Tom's going to shut off the audio and video.
Yeah.
We're going to have to wait until he. Tom. Oh, you know what? Is your audio muted? There, I think we got it. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, good. Good job, Tom. Tom picked the video back up for us. That's great. We're going to introduce Carissa as soon as you get back to the console there.
Okay.
Carissa is down here from Michigan, on the boondocks up there somewhere in Michigan. Carissa, welcome. I'm really pleased that you're here. She's not too familiar with the kind of things that we're going to be talking about, Curt, and so I've told her that if she wanted to pop in and ask questions occasionally, she'd be welcome to do that. So hopefully that's okay on your end. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, good. So you began meditating in childhood. How did that come about?
Well, to tell you the truth, in childhood, I didn't really realize I was meditating.
I understand.
I would wander into the woods behind our house, sit still and listen to the wind blowing through the trees and really take in the beauty of my surroundings. And didn't realize I was meditating. But I have done that since childhood.
Are you familiar with St. Francis?
Yes, I sure am.
So St. Francis was a nature mystic. Do you consider yourself a nature mystic?
Yes. Yes, I enjoy getting out every chance I get. And meditating outdoors is, to me, one of the greatest ways to do it. To go out and maybe listen to waves roll into shore, or just be out and enjoy your surroundings. I think there's a real spirituality in nature, and you take that in as you're outdoors.
I'm pretty much a nature mystic myself. I talk. My grandkids laugh at me for talking to the animals. My daughter laughs at me, but hey, they're all there. They're all attentive. Really. Hey, speaking of some, doing it, meditating in nature. While I was doing some research for tonight's show, I found an interview that you had done with an underwater meditator. Is that right?
Yes, Adrian Bernardi.
Well, I don't know if you know Adrian well, but you know, in order to actually hear the interview or see the interview, you have to sign up, and which I did, and then it says, well, we've sent you an email, and you can, you know, like if you click on, you can come back. You might tell them that's not operating properly, so they're not being able to see your video. So just,
I wasn't aware of that.
yeah, I'm sure he's not either. You know, that kind of stuff can happen, and you don't even know that it's going on. So listen, I recently lost a 10-year-old lab and pretty broken up about it. You've just had a similar experience?
Oh, with my German Shepherd?
With Gunner, yeah.
Yeah.
When did that happen with Gunner?
Well, he died, it would have been about a year and a half ago.
Ah, okay.
And, yeah, if you've read the article, it was a very hard thing, but it was wonderful to be able to tap in and get a sense of where he's going. And
yeah,
he was.
So you and your wife did some clairvoyant things with Gunner. I kind of wanted you to maybe share a bit of that with our audience because, you know, that's
sure.
Yeah, please do. Very interesting story. Matter of fact, you brought a new pet in the home. Is that pet doing well?
Is it a clairvoyant or?
Oh, I say you also brought a new pet in at the same time. A new.
Our miniature Australian Shepherd.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Gunner was a wonderful dog, and as his health went downhill, it was very helpful to be able to tap in to spirit guides and find out exactly what's going on. And he did have some issues getting along with Reba. He was, you know, we had hoped that he would really enjoy having a new puppy in the house, and actually what happened is he ended up kind of jealous of her because she had good health and a lot of love, as puppies do. And I guess when it was time, when we had the vet in to have him put down, I certainly tapped in and saw him. At that point, he was just so happy to be free of his old, worn-out body that just wasn't working. He had a lot of health issues, and it's a hard thing putting a pet down, but
well,
we were happy. Yeah, we were happy to know that he went on. You know, he goes on. They do, and he was going to a wonderful place, and it made the whole experience much easier.
So when you are in the clairvoyant state with your pet, are you able to really get into that other dimension where he resides now?
Well, that's almost a whole other story. But when I'm doing clairvoyant work, I will meditate. I would say for the most part, I don't fully get into that dimension. I was more like able to see him leave his body, see him go on. And the whole other story is Reva, our miniature Australian Shepherd, our new dog. And she's such a wonderful dog, too, is that one of my daughters decided to buy an Australian Shepherd. And we recently got the message that it's actually Gunner, anxious to be part of the family again. And so, yeah, he doesn't live, you know, they live 15 miles from us, but we see him regularly now. You know, he acts, this new Australian Shepherd acts pretty much like a puppy. So we got that it's kind of the essence of Gunner, and we see some of his personality traits showing up in his puppy already. And
that's pretty amazing, isn't it?
It is amazing, and yeah, the things I learn are out there in the spiritual realm are just incredible, and you know, the things that can happen. I wouldn't have even guessed that dogs reincarnate really until our experience with Gunner, and we really did reading on that and found out through experience that.
Well, that's going to lead me into another thing that I found I want to talk with you about. But before that, hey, Tom, if you go over and you move that mouse away from the screen, the menu will go away from, or Carissa can, if you would just move the mouse down. What's going on here, Curt, is the menu from Skype is up on your view, and we just want to get rid of it. So you've done some work on life between lives. Maybe you can elaborate on that a bit for us. Kind of what your experience has been with that.
Yes. Well, during my clairvoyant training and some since then, we've done a lot of looking at past lives. Taking a look at, what sort of things, say, I did in a past life. I actually had a lot of lives, did things like farming, lots of lives as a warrior of some sort or other, going back quite many years. And by looking at your own past lives, you can get a sense of what your spiritual path is, where you're going, what you need to work on. And I had the sense that, looking at all my warrior lives, that I have some work to do in this life on really developing compassion and helping my fellow man, which I think is a very important thing.
So did that develop out of some of those warrior lives, you think? The need for that?
Well, that's something that I didn't do as much in those lives.
Right.
And so, yeah, I'm really working on doing that in this life.
Well, I really relate to when you say that some, getting in touch with your past life can connect the dots with a lot of what's going on in the present life, because I've had a few experiences like that just helped me tremendously to understand situations I wouldn't have been able to understand otherwise.
Yeah, it is very beneficial, that's for sure.
So, do you do past life regressions with folks when you do clairvoyant work with them, or are you involved in that at all?
I have definitely done plenty of that, or I've done a clairvoyant reading, and if they have an issue going on in this life, often I'll see maybe a past life come up where they had a similar issue going on, and it gives you some insight into maybe what's going on in this life.
Uh-huh.
And I don't do a whole lot of that anymore. I'll more do readings on things like what to include in my book, or if I have an upcoming talk. But I do still do some of that.
Right. So are you doing clairvoyant work at all? Not much?
I haven't been doing a whole lot lately. In all honesty, my wife's a better clairvoyant than I am.
Okay. The reason I asked, we're going to put up your website and contact information so that our audience can contact you or your wife if they're interested in having a reading. Also, they'll be able to, he'll tell them where to buy your book and so forth.
Yeah, that would be great.
Your book is a great read. One of the things I really enjoyed about it was that you didn't make it complex, and the title says it. It's simple meditation, and I believe my experience, the simpler the better.
I do too. I wanted to make it very easy and approachable for anyone, people that don't meditate, and then I think there are things in there that are advanced enough to keep anyone that is a frequent meditator interested.
Absolutely. How did you get your start in meditation? I mean, did you? I mean, not your childhood start when you were meditating, but did you have formal meditation training? Did TM or something?
My real training, I spent over a year in clairvoyant training, where we did an awful lot of meditating, a lot of running your energy, running quantum energy, or a lot of connecting with guides. We did plenty of things like past life regression. And then when I got done with that, I moved on to learning other types of meditation. And it really became clear to me that a lot of the things that I've been doing even before I was formally meditating were a form of meditation, like the times out in nature. And that's still one of my biggest focuses.
I'll tell you what. Go ahead.
I guess, yeah, when I developed the ability to access the spiritual realm, I got a lot of good meditations, especially visualization meditations. By connecting with my higher self, or maybe from a spirit guide, I need a meditation for a specific purpose. I would sit down, meditate, and one would come to me. I'd write it down. Hey, that is a great meditation for this purpose, and then include it in my book. And most of them are easy to do but effective.
Right. Yeah, they seemed really like they would be effective and simple based on my experience. So I want to get Carissa involved here a bit.
Okay.
Carissa, have you ever meditated? No. So when we talk about past lives and things, do you know what we're talking about?
Well, does me sitting by a tree next to my pond count as meditation?
Tom, is her microphone up? I'm not hearing her.
I'm not hearing her either.
She's on what on your? It's on what is it, number 3? It's on.
Can you hear me now?
No. Are you? Okay, give us a.
Is that better?
Yeah, now we're getting her, Tom. So, do you know what reincarnation is?
Yeah.
Okay. Have you ever had any experience with reincarnation? The past life?
Not as far as I know.
Curt, if you were to advise someone on how to connect a past life just on their own, what would you suggest?
Well, there's actually an exercise in my book.
Right.
And I guess first, every time I meditate, I sit down and I'll ground and run my energies. And then the meditation involves just calming your mind and maybe meditating on a specific aspect of a past life, like maybe your most recent past life. Then close your eyes and work on, well, it should come pretty effortlessly, but just work on visualizing that. Maybe you visualize that if you open your eyes, you're looking down at your feet. And if you're in a past life, you might get a sense of where you're at by what's on your feet. Are you wearing sandals or fancy shoes, or are you barefoot? And then look around it, and if you're seeing anything, are you getting a sense of what's around you? Or maybe you only get a sense of, that, well, let's see, I think my past life was World War II, or, something like that.
Right. Cool. Very good. Hey, listen, Curt, one of the things that we do, when we do the show, we have various screens that we show. And I usually have a title bar with the guest's name on it. And I only changed the name on about 2 of the screens, and so we're kind of limited. If you wouldn't mind, we're gonna drop back and forth between those screens. There'll be somebody else's name on it, but before I upload it, I will change all of that. But during the live show, it's going to show somebody else's name. But it'll make for a much better show if we do that. So I apologize, and I hope I'm sure you'll understand. So Tom, you can go ahead and change screens at will, and I'll do some post-production work on it afterwards. Okay.
Yep.
Cool. I want to. You talk a bit about science and heaven. And I wanted to get your take on that. You want to tell us how you see those two coming together?
Well, quantum science now, they're really coming to the understanding that everything is energy. And now when I say that, when you look at solid matter, like say a chair, it's made of molecules which are made of atoms, which are made of even smaller things like quarks, leptons, and electrons.
Right.
And well, I'm sure you understand all this, but they've just found that when they look at these tiny things closely enough, they behave as energy. And that's the things, the building blocks for everything else around it. So basically everything is energy or made of energy.
Right.
And I believe the whole spiritual realm is also made of energy on a higher vibration. It's out of most people's normal frequency, and that's why people don't typically do things like, or a lot of people don't do things like see clairvoyant images, or you need to raise your vibration high enough to tap into that. And when you do, you find that's the spiritual realm out there. The angels, spirit guides, the whole heaven made out of basically higher vibration energy.
Right. So, what's your take on why some people are able to connect into that energy while others just draw a blank? They aren't able to connect at all. As a matter of fact, of course, then you have people who just totally disbelieve. But there are people that I know would like to make a better connection with that spiritual world that
Sure.
that aren't able. Have you got any tips for them as far as what they might do? I know meditation has got to be very helpful.
Yeah, it is very helpful. When I mentioned that when I meditate, the first things I do are grounding and running my energies.
Right.
Part of the reason for that is when you run more energy through your system, through your aura and chakras,
Uh-huh.
you can actually release blocks that are maybe blocking your connection, blocking your ability to tap in and see that spiritual realm. So that's an important part of meditating. Another part of meditating is to quiet your mind so that you can connect. You can, if you say a spirit guide was trying to get a message to you, you're not going to hear it if your mind's full of chatter or you're in the midst of something.
Uh-huh.
I think that for me, communication with your higher self, your spirit guides, even angels, it tends to be pretty subtle. So you need to have a quiet mind until you can tap into what kind of message they're trying to get across to you.
Yeah, I find that that's exactly right. You know, all of this is really pretty subtle, and you have to be in quiet is really, really important to the whole thing. Now, for those people who don't understand, when you say you run energy, tell us what that process looks like. What do you do?
Okay. Well, quantum science they've also found that energy responds to thought. So when you have a conscious intention to, like, you close your eyes and you visualize moving energy,
Uh-huh.
this energy actually responds when you're doing that. And as beings of energy, we're made of our lower vibration bodies and our higher vibration auras and chakras. When you visualize more energy running through, like bringing energy up from the earth through your feet, when you visualize that, you're actually doing that. And you're accomplishing cleaning out your energy system and visualizing cosmic energy from the heavens and skies. When you visualize that coming down through your crown chakra and running through your system, you're actually accomplishing that. Clearing out blocks that maybe getting in your way of connecting with the spiritual realm.
So when you talk about using the power of visualization, this is one of those ways that you do that.
Right. When you do that, you're actually accomplishing what you visualize.
You know, a lot of folks teach visualization with things like boards where you visualize, like your new Jaguar or your new mansion or your new boat. So you're not talking about that kind of visualization necessarily. You're talking about other ways that you can use visualization very powerfully.
Yep. But I think that those are a great idea too.
Right.
You know, when you visualize something manifesting in your life, like a new Jaguar, and visualizing it is very helpful. And then I think also raising your vibration is very helpful, because a lot of times, I'm sure you're familiar with the teachings of Abraham and the Hicks.
Yes.
In order to receive what we're visualizing, we need to have a high enough vibration to connect with it.
I'm convinced that the body of our beliefs, our complete belief system, really sets a vibration, sets our vibration pattern, and that the way to change that to a higher pattern is to change what we believe. Not necessarily easy, but I think you're right on with that. As a matter of fact, at the early part of the show, before you and I started talking, I was talking about how we needed to think about what we wanted as opposed to what we don't want, because if we focus on what we don't want, we just energize it and tend to manifest it more, which fits exactly with what you're talking about as far as the visualization is concerned.
Yeah, I sure agree with you.
Yeah, I tell you what, Krista wants to ask a question here. Put her on, Tom, and please do.
Hi, I have a question. When you talk about visualizing and everything, what would you say to people who sometimes might think that maybe they're just hallucinating when they visualize things and they actually mistake it for hallucinations?
Well, I would say one big difference between visualizing and hallucinating would be when you visualize, you control the intention. If you sit down and close your eyes and work on visualizing a Jaguar, then it's not hallucinating unless you're not trying to visualize one, and the Jaguar keeps on popping in. And I think, where it is too. I think when people hallucinate, they may be seeing it as something solid out there that's not solid out there yet. I don't know if that makes any sense, but to me that's a pretty key difference between visualizing and hallucinating.
Carissa, when you say hallucinate, that's a pretty strong word. Are you really saying, or does this also happen that because and Curt just mentioned it, because it isn't solid, because you can't read it, because you're actually getting it in your mental picture, that somehow or other it's not real? Is that
well, yeah, that was my main question, because my dad and we had a dog that passed away a couple years ago, and we buried her next to our pond, and I like to go sit next to the pond, pretty much right where we buried her, and I like to just sit out there and clear my head and think, and sometimes I almost feel like she's around. I don't know if it's because I'm creeped out that I'm sitting on top of where she's buried or what, but sometimes it freaks me out, sometimes it doesn't.
My guess would be that her presence is still there around you, and that's feeling that. And I wouldn't put that into the category of hallucination. I'd put that into a wonderful opportunity to reconnect with your dog.
Yeah, one of the things, Curt, that so many people get caught up in is the opinions of others. And I find with a lot of this, it's a good idea to know who you're talking with and to protect your psyche. Some people you shouldn't talk about these things. They're going to just throw cold water over the whole thing and make it and maybe make it to where you don't benefit from those excursions into that realm. It's very, very powerful stuff.
Yeah, I absolutely agree.
Tom, are we having problems with the screens? I see we're not changing up at all.
Oh, we've been changing up quite a bit.
Is that right?
Yep.
Okay. Oh, you know what? I'm catching Curt out of the corner of my eye, and what I'm getting is the Skype is all. I'm not seeing the show. I'm thinking I'm seeing the show. I was wrong on that. So good. So things are working well.
Okay, good.
I want to talk about. You have any more questions, Chris? Do you want to ask anything else at this point?
No, I think I'm good for right now.
Okay, you pop in at any point. That was a great question. And
Yeah, it was a wonderful question.
yeah, and both of them, and they're really important because I think a lot of our people in our audience experience the same kinds of things. And you know, the psychic realm, that clairvoyant realm, it feels pretty unsteady when you first begin to discover that, doesn't it, Curt? How was your first experiences? Were you just able to feel that, okay, this is real, or did you struggle with that a bit yourself early on?
Well, my first experiences probably go back to later in my childhood. I would every once in a while see something like a spirit walking through the room, and I found that very scary. And
I'll bet.
you know, I kind of shut down my psychic abilities for a number of years, I believe. My next experiences would be something like in my teens, I might have a dream, a very vivid dream, like I hadn't seen a friend for a couple of weeks, had a very vivid dream of a British car that I would have never in a million years thought about. You know, it wasn't one I was. Talked to the friend the next day, and he had been sitting around his house reading a car magazine before he went to bed and thinking about that car as he went to bed.
Huh.
Well, I realized the only explanation is it was some kind of a psychic connection. and I would just occasionally have dreams like that over the years that I knew something psychic was going on, and eventually came to really like it and wanted to experience more of that.
Yeah, absolutely. What kind of a religious background did you grow up in? Was there any, or were your parents tuned into this kind of a world?
I was raised Catholic.
Yeah.
And because of that, I probably avoided church. A lot of it was just too strict as far as I was concerned, and I didn't want to have a whole lot to do with it, especially after my teens.
Right.
As I started doing more clairvoyant work, I have found that a lot of the things in the Catholic Church I do believe in now, you know, like angels,
Yes.
but I believe in them through my own communication with them, not because of my early Catholic teachings. So.
That's one of the biggest difficulties with organized religion is that it's in, you know, it wants to tell us that we need an intermediary between ourselves and the higher power.
That's right.
And that they're the only, you know, good intermediary. So,
Right.
yeah, and I think that gets pretty discouraging. So
Yeah.
One of the things that you talk about, and this might interest you too, Carissa, are vision quests. Chris, as a matter of fact, Chris just had a birthday. What was it, 2 days ago?
What's today's date? 25th. 4 days ago.
4 days ago, she turned 21, so that's a big milestone.
Yeah.
I'm an old fart now.
I wouldn't exactly say that. So you talk about vision quests, and boy, that would be such a good opportunity. Carissa lives in Michigan now, and in the country, and you know,
Okay.
has the opportunity. So talk to us about vision quests. How somebody might do it, and the importance of it, and what you can expect or not expect when you go on a vision quest. Because I know she's, you know, struggling a bit with you know, what she wants to do, what her life is supposed to be, and
Yes, I have a daughter that same age, or she'll be turning 21 before long.
right.
And she's had a couple of Vision Quest experiences, went on long backpacking trips with a group. We live in Washington State.
Uh-huh.
And one of the first trips, they backpacked for 3 weeks. The last part of their trip was on the Olympic Peninsula. They would drop each person off for a couple of days of spending time by themselves and really connecting. And she said it was just an incredible experience. I think that's a great age to be doing something like that, because that is a time when you're considering options. And well, Native Americans for thousands of years did that as kind of a coming of age thing.
See, that's how I was raised. I was raised with those Native American beliefs, I guess you could say, because my father is very into the fact that we have Native American blood running through our veins, and he's very into that, and he's gotten me very into it.
Well, I would suggest that you really look into Vision Quest. I think because I know your Indian background, and I think you.
Well, I'd hope you would know. You are my grandpa.
Yeah. Well,
well, my wife went on one, and it was, for her, I think, one of the most incredible experiences. And the whole connecting with the totem animal is, I think that's the type of guide that I absolutely believe in, and you can get great information, a sense of direction in life.
Krista, do you have a totem animal? You know what that is?
A what?
A totem animal? Why don't you tell her?
A totem animal?
Yeah.
I don't have one. As far as I know, I don't have one of those.
Why don't you talk with her a bit about how she might connect up with that, Curt?
Okay, well, a totem animal is, it's a type of guide that shows itself maybe if you go out and work on connecting or finding yours. It shows itself as some sort of animal, and there can be a real message in the animal. Like, I have a totem animal, a wolf, that conveys a sense of protection, sense of family. And when I've gone out and done vision quests, that's been an important part of my vision quest. My wife, who's had a great vision quest experience, she went out for 3 days into the mountains by herself. The first night she was scared, couldn't get to sleep at first, and she, from an earlier reading, knew that her totem animal was an owl.
Uh-huh.
Well, as she's laying in her tent trying to get to sleep, she hears an owl calling from across the river.
Huh.
Like, wow, that's cool. And she continued listening, and then another owl showed up, and then 2 more owls showed up, and she could hear 4 owls chattering back and forth practically outside of her tent. And she wasn't afraid anymore. She thought, this is an incredible experience, and somehow my totem animal has found me and let me know that I'm safe and I'm doing what I should be doing. And I think at that point she probably broke down crying.
I would suspect that's a pretty heavy emotion at that point.
Yeah, see, it's funny that he says his is a wolf, because as he started explaining the totem animal, the first thing that popped into my head is like a coyote or a wolf.
Okay.
Visual. Because I don't know if it's because I'm really protective of my family and my friends, or I'm a big people person. I'm very protective of just about anyone that I meet.
Well, coyotes and wolves are very social too. They have
I'm a social person.
Very, very social.
That might be, but that's your totem animal, and that's why that's popped in.
Well, it's kind of funny because when my dad and I will watch the deer in the backfield, and there was one time where we actually seen a couple coyotes running in the backfield, which isn't very uncommon because we live in the sticks. There's like no one around us. And it didn't freak me out because they weren't, of course I was in the house and I knew I was safe, but I don't know, it kind of calmed me down almost, if that makes sense. Like, I thought it was very relaxing just to see that majestic
Yeah.
animal that's wild, that no one can tame.
I think that's the kind of sense you get when you come in contact with your totem animal.
So,
And my
go ahead, Curt.
That they may show themselves as, the actual animal somehow, or in my experience, when I close my eyes, I'll maybe get an image of the wolf. But my wife's experience clearly was real owls showing up somehow. So that sounds really cool, and
Yeah, it sounds to me like that might well be your totem animal. You know what you might do, and I think it might help some of our audience too, Curt, is just give Carissa a brief meditation instruction. How to actually meditate.
okay. Well, in nature, that's, I think, one of the most wonderful places to meditate.
It sounds like it would be for her also because she has this spot where her dog is, and
Yeah. But find a comfortable seat, maybe I don't know, I tend to find a log to sit on, something comfortable where you can sit for a while and close your eyes, tune into, you might start by tuning into the sound of water lapping at the lake or the stream. And like I mentioned, I tend to run my energies first. If you want to connect with your dog, maybe, think its name and see if anything shows up. Or if you're trying to contact a totem animal, I will just calm my mind, hold that intention that I would like my wolf totem animal to show up. And when he does, I might go on with further questions, think a question and then wait for a reply. And it might come back as a visual image, or it might come back as more like almost worded message. I get the sense with totem animals that they can actually communicate very well in your own language or in visual images.
Well, that's a good idea. Maybe I should try that when I go home.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I'm going home on Thursday morning, so actually I probably will after this hectic past few months. I'm ready to just go sit by the pond and hang out for a few minutes by myself.
You'll have to let us know how that worked out.
I will.
I'd be real interested in knowing, what happened for you with that. So, how many children do you have, Curt?
3.
You have 3 children. So you've been married for quite some time. If you have a 21-year-old, huh?
Yes.
And are they pretty? Your children, are they pretty receptive to your clairvoyance and the meditation and so forth?
They're pretty receptive. They've all 3 read the book, or at least part of it. They have busy, hectic lives, and sometimes it's hard to get them to get too involved.
If you got them to read your book, my friends, you've done great. That's oftentimes the last thing they want to do is hear more of what Dad and Mom got to say and have to read it.
That's true.
Especially around 17, 18 years old.
Yeah. My youngest is 16. She's pretty open-minded, and she's actually sat down with me plenty of times and meditated and done some incredible visualization or done some incredible clairvoyant reading. But now, when I say incredible, I just mean that it didn't take her much to start getting things.
Right.
But,
right. So you had a bout with cancer, I understand, and you actually talk about reprogramming your DNA and targeting the cancer with high vibration energy. Tell us about that. Tell us about that. I know there are a lot of people who suffer a lot of different things that they could transpose the word cancer and throw in their problem that I think that what you're talking about could do very well for that too. So maybe give us some details on that.
Yeah, I actually had surgery August 29th for prostate cancer.
This past August?
Yes, pretty recently. I'm still working on recovering. But
Uh-huh. What kind of regimen are they got you on chemotherapy or anything?
No, I just had surgery, and
They implant seeds or anything?
no.
Okay,
No,
good.
just conventional surgery.
Right.
But before that, I was working on reducing the cancer and working with very advanced spirits on healing techniques, like you probably read.
Yes.
And doing it like you mentioned, bringing in very high vibration energy. I would get these techniques.
Well, before you go there, tell us when you say bringing in high vibration energy. Be
Yeah.
specific. How does one do that?
Well, I would do that by sitting down and doing my normal grounding and running my energies, and working on contacting advanced. In this case, I've worked with, say, Archangel Raphael. Worked. Well, I guess I'm a strong believer in Jesus now and some of the Catholic things.
Uh-huh.
And I would ask for help in getting a vibration that is high enough to have an impact on the cancer.
Right.
Bring it down through my crown chakra and actually target the prostate and work on having this very high vibration energy spread throughout and clean up anything like cancer, DNA that's not correct. And I would have, feel a real impact, like a high vibration. But I absolutely believe in Western medicine too, and using the two together. So.
Yeah, for sure, huh? So in order to, what I'm hearing you say then is that you asked your higher power, and you also had intent.
Yeah.
Well, this might be good. When you finish this, let's talk a bit of, and we're not going to have a lot of time. I guess we got about 5 minutes left. Talk a bit about the importance and need for intent and how we focus that.
Well, for instance, when I would visualize, meditate, I would visualize what I wanted to accomplish. I would ask for help in maybe creating and bringing the vibration up to a high enough vibration. But then I would visualize it as a beam of energy. So it was my intent that was really channeling, or not, I guess kind of creating the beam, or
allowing it?
Allowing it, yeah. So the intention, with the intention and the visualization, it's just a way of, I'm drawing a blank on what.
That's okay. The reason I asked that is because I think you talk about something that's very, very powerful.
Yeah.
With intent. This whole thing, when Carissa asked you earlier about the hallucinations and so forth, intent plays a huge role and we need to be able to understand that, and then when we get the response, be able to trust the response, don't we?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's very key. Yep.
Yeah, it's real hard. How much time we got left? Tom, 3 minutes?
Yes, sir.
We got about. I'll tell you what, Carissa, we got about 3 minutes left, and I really have enjoyed having you on the show. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I sure enjoyed being
being
here.
Yeah, and have you got any last questions you'd like to ask Curt?
I have one more question for
Yeah,
him.
please.
Curt, when you were talking earlier about you were raised in the Catholic, correct?
Yeah.
What would you say to those my age or any age, I guess, who, I guess you could use me for example. I believe in that stuff, and I also believe in the whole Native American ways of the Great Spirit versus just one person
Yeah.
or being. What would you say to someone to let them know that that's okay and that they're not like demons or anything for not believing in what certain people believe?
What I believe now, after my experiences, is that there's some truth in probably all religions, and there's things that. So you should pick up what rings true to you, and maybe leave the rest behind.
Yeah, trying to convince other people about what you believe and what you're in is kind of a lost cause, isn't it?
Yes, that's very true.
Because you just kind of get in a war of ideas.
Yeah, I have a lot of friends that are either confused, or I have other friends who are very strong with their beliefs, no matter what it is, and they almost try to persuade you into believing certain ways. And I didn't know how would I approach the friends who are confused when I'd say, it's okay for you to feel like this. It's not, there's nothing wrong with being confused or just not knowing what you want to believe yet.
Right. I think you gotta explore different things and see, like I said, what rings true.
I might add something in there that I found that's pretty effective. You might suggest that they pray and ask their higher power, God, whatever they choose, to reveal self to them. And
That's a great idea. Great suggestion.
and that'll takes the ego out of the place, out of the whole mix. So, listen, Curt, I think we've run out of time. You've been a great guest. I've really enjoyed having you. Within the next 24, 48 hours, I'm going to have to do some post-production work on this to take care of the guest name in it. But once I got that done, I'll flip you an email and let you know where the link is where you can.
That's great. I really enjoyed it, and if there's anything I can get to you that'll help, let me know. Like,
I definitely will do that. And some point in the future, we'll have to get back. You get over here on the East Coast, get down around Sarasota. Do stop in, and we'll have a cup of coffee.
that sounds great. Okay.
Okay. Thanks, Curt. Have a good night now. Wow, good show. I've just really liked having you on the show, Carissa. Thanks for coming and sitting in with us. Tom, you did a great job tonight. I appreciate it. Looks like we're out of time. Don't forget, next week I've got Frank Hugenard, who is a filmmaker. This guy's going to be really interesting, so you won't want to miss the show. In the meantime, don't forget to accentuate the positive and have a fantastic week.